We are coming off a win yesterday against South Alabama, who prior to that was undefeated. Had only given up one goal on the season. It had some really good results. They and on a Sunday afternoon, coming off of a tough game on Thursday against TCU, we're proud of the way our players played. We won the game 4-1. 4 different goal scorers in the match. This second half was really one of our better performances. I think South Alabama got worn down by our ability to move the ball and make them chase. But it was, all in all, a really solid way for us to wrap up the end of our non-conference schedule. We start SEC play this Friday at home against Georgia, who is very talented, very well coached. I think they are 6-2 on the season right now. Their only losses coming against defending national champions with Florida State. So it's a big challenge for us. It's a big game for us. Friday night on the night before home football game is usually a really fun night at Ellis Field because it kind of starts the weekend off, rolls from us through midnight yell practice into football. The match on Friday also is our cause game, so that'll be our Turn It Gold game, where we are raising money to try to fight childhood cancer. The Turn It Gold Foundation is a group that we have partnered with for many years now, and all the money that we are able to raise on this particular match, usually by one of the best ways we raise money on it is we auction off hard to find or impossible to find Aggie soccer jerseys. They are special made gold and maroon jerseys that the girls have actually worn in past years. I think we've got 15 of those that'll be up for auction at 12thman.com/turnitgold. Also, just the idea that our players this is a player-driven drive for our ladies, that this is something that's really important to them. The Turn It Gold Foundation is run by Aggies and based in Houston. Some amazing facts that more than 90,000 kids a year die from childhood cancer, and even kids who have survived the initial treatments and procedures to keep them alive have problems down the line because of just long-term issues from oftentimes the procedures. So we try to help fund the research that's going to end those hardships for a lot of families. A lot of kids who are cancer survivors will be at the game and will be awarded a Heroes Medal at halftime by the Turn It Gold folks. So for us, it's a double big night, but as much as anything, it's a huge night because we get to start SEC play, and it's a really, really deep league this year in the SEC. It'll be interesting to see how who comes out on top in the West, who comes out on top overall as we go through this SEC portion of the schedule. So happy to open up to any questions.
Let's go back to TV row. We'll go to Tyler, and then we'll go to Travis.
G, with some of the competition you've already played so far in the season, you feel like this team is kind of prepared and ready for this, what you said is a deep conference schedule?
I'd like to think so. I feel a lot better about what's going to happen in the next few weeks based on what happened yesterday at Ellis Field and the performance that the players put in. I mean, to bounce back and get a win against a team that is, a perennial NCAA tournament team in South Alabama is a big deal. I mean, South Alabama is probably half international players and half players from around the United States, but some very, very sophisticated and smart players in the way they go about it. We scored first, they tied it, and then we were able to score before halftime, and then the second half really control play and scored a couple more times. So the games we've played, on the road at Clemson, on the road at Ohio State, on the road at Illinois, TCU's top 10 team at home, and now another team that's going to be an NCAA tournament team in South Alabama. I think that we've seen a variety of styles. We've seen a variety of levels of athleticism and focus. So I feel about as good as I could. I think it'd be nice if we were, completely, tarnish and we'd be 8-0, 8-0-0. But coming in at 5-1-2 is we're in a pretty good spot. And honestly, the SEC has done a wonderful job. The teams across the league, we have more than a 750 winning percentage across the league for all of our teams, which will help out, I think, quite a bit in RPI. Currently, we are number 12 nationally in the RPI. There's 348 teams. So we've put ourselves into a pretty good position to where now these games that we're going to play in the SEC, which all but one team in the SEC have got a winning record. So we think that every one of these games can be one that can actually boost us and move us even further forward for the national scene.
Front right to Travis.
I know you kind of have mentioned it before, but the amount of different goal scorers that you have compared to where y'all were last year, does that give you a little bit more confidence about where this attack is going into conference play?
It does, and sometimes it doesn't, because you never know who's going to show up and who's going to put it together. Now, recently it's been pretty consistent on. It's nice to see Micaiah McDonald has already got, I think, 4 goals. Kate Colvin's already got 3 goals. Those are 2 people in completely different roles. Mia Pante is continuously the best player on the field when we're in attack. So there's a lot of real positives in the fact that different people can score, which means that our opponents can't just double and triple team one go-to player, because we'll burn them with somebody else.
And then, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a new tie situation coming into conference play this year. Do you think with points being distributed for ties and no overtime, that'll change the way that some teams play, especially kind of at the end of the game?
Well, I know that yesterday, I think that South Alabama would have been happy getting out with a tie, and I think that they were prepared that if the game was close, that was what they were going to go ahead and bunker in and try to get it done. Because we scored at the end of the first half, now they had to chase the game a little bit, so it changed the perspective. But just in general, what's happened is, I think, is a bad rule change in that the men's Division I soccer, which there's about 200 teams playing Division I men's soccer, they want to be more like the pros. So they want to have, they want the referee to keep the clock on the field, even though we have $1 million scoreboards. They want to have no overtime, because that's what they do in the Premier League. They want to have a lot of things that are more about pro, because their game is 35% international players, so they want to try to mimic the pros as much as we can. On the women's side, it's a college experience. We have great facilities. We have the ability to know what exactly how much time is left in a match, which is better for the crowd. But there's 348 women's teams, and we wanted to keep it to where there was overtime, because it's more exciting. If there's a golden goal where you score and win in overtime, that's an exciting way for our fans to go home pleased. It's also a lot easier on the committee that is going to be determining who's in the NCAA tournament. And Buzz Williams last year, when the men's basketball team didn't make it into the NCAA tournament, Buzz made some really good comments that I don't think many people picked up on, and they kind of took it as sour grapes on his part. And it wasn't sour grapes on his part. He was talking about the way that NCAA committees are put together, that they are primarily half people who live and breathe the sport, and half people that are looking for resume enhancement, that if they're on a committee, they get to go up a little bit further. And maybe those people don't have a clue as far as what's going on in that particular sport. Now, he didn't mention any names, and I'm not going to mention any names either. But when you are so dependent on the RPI, which is a winning percentage, and you have wins and losses, okay, then you have wins and losses. But once you throw ties in there, then the question is, what's a good tie and what's a bad tie? And how do these people who don't live and breathe sport, that determine my world and my life, how do they make their decisions? And that's what's going to make it a little bit dicey, I feel like, in November. Now, in the SEC, it's 3 points for a win, it's 1 point for a tie. That's the way it's always been, and and that's a proven method. But at the same time, every year it comes down to the last kick of the last game that determines who makes the SEC tournament, oftentimes who's the regular season champion, and everything else. I just think that having it to where there's no overtime, it just makes it to where I know there's already been more than twice as many ties in the country, maybe 3 times as many ties in the country so far, and we're only a third of the way through the season, or a little more than a third of the way through the season. So I'll get off my soapbox, but that's my worry. That's my big picture worry on what could happen to a lot of teams around the country.
Front row to the left, Zach.
G, as you guys are getting ready for this SEC opener, the fact that you do have, obviously, you're going to be practicing, so it's not time off, but away from game competition, how nice is that kind of circling around Georgia and the fact that you get this week and then all of pretty much next week until Thursday?
It's great. And, we learned a lot of things from the 2020 COVID year. And one of the things that we did in the SEC was we only played SEC teams just like football did, but we only played 1 game a week. And by only having 1 game a week, our injuries went down, our preparation went up, the quality of the game went up, the difficulty of the game went up because the other team was just as prepared as we were. And so one of the things that we're trying to do nationally as a sport, we've recently done a poll, and 92% of our coaches across women's soccer are in favor of us expanding our season, going from 12 weeks to 15 weeks in the fall, making it a little bit more like the volleyball season. And that would spread games out and make it more like what we're about to experience this week, which is a good amount of rest for our players after a tough game on Sunday, to now an extra day of preparation, so so we can kind of spread the load out just a little bit more. And then you play on Friday night, you get a little bit of time off on the weekend, and then you start another week. So we're excited about it. I think that for us to be able to get a little bit more preparation when you know a really, really good Georgia team is coming in is just what the doctor ordered.
All right, I think that's a wrap, Coach.
Thanks, everybody.